Hey guys, I'm back again with another video. Today I thought I'd switch it up, give you some pretty practical advice on, how to become successful, and, let me know in the comments if you guys like this kind of video style. But what I'm gonna be talking about is this book, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you need to read this book. To be honest, you should just, open up ChatGPT and ask it to give you the most actionable summary, because in today's world, you don't really need to be reading, to be honest. But when I read this book, like about, 4 or 5 years ago, right? This book is so important because it taught me so many things that are just key and fundamentals to becoming successful. If you think about any realm of success, whether it be personal success, academic success, career success, relationship success, it all has to do with one thing: talking with people, right? And so this book can really open your eyes to a new perspective of how people kind of tick, in a sense of like, how and why do some people connect with other people so easily? What is it that everybody is searching for in this world, but they don't actually get, I think one of the biggest takeaways I had from this book is that most people, whether it's a sad reality or it's just the reality, is that most people care only about themselves. And when you can start to understand that and you stop yourself from just trying to talk only about yourself to other people, and you start to actually listen to other people, you start connecting and learning so much more on such a deeper level. Because a lot of people out there are just dying to tell someone else about their life. And you see this so often in any sort of social situation, right? You see people who are fighting for that like hot seat just to talk. They're cutting each other off. They're just constantly trying to talk and ram their own stories down someone else's throat. But have you ever considered, like, what if we're just a little quieter? I'm not saying just don't speak at all. I'm just saying just be a little quieter. Just give the person a little bit more chance to talk and you just listen. And in this book, the thing I really like about it is there's so many examples that he uses of actual like situations where listening actually, led to more success than just trying to ram your own narrative down someone else's throat. Instead of telling them, oh, hey, I'm Ryan, like I'm amazing, all this. Why don't you just let them tell you about themselves? Because if we know that everybody wants to kind of talk about themselves for the most part, right? This is a big generalization, but for the most part, it's pretty true. Then if you give someone the opportunity to tell you about themselves, right? You're giving them that opportunity that they're almost dying for. Because when you finish a conversation with somebody and they've told you a lot about themselves, they actually feel better, right? They feel like somebody was listening to them. They feel heard. And a lot of this is super important, right, for building connections. And so once you realize that, you can start to separate yourself from, I would say, the vast majority of people, because everybody in this world only cares about themselves for the most part. So if you start to realize that and just start to say, okay, let me give them a chance to just talk about themselves and maybe also learn. This is also a really big thing. It's not only letting them talk about themselves. You're actually going to learn more from them because you're allowing them to actually just talk. Sometimes there's so much knowledge, so much insight just in somebody's brain, but because we keep fighting each other just to tell our own story and never listen to each other, we don't actually get any of that insight. We don't actually get whatever's in their brain. So if you can just have a conversation with somebody, but try to maybe have them be the person who talks 75% of the time. Again, this is a big generalization. There's different kinds of conversations and you can't apply to every single one. But I'm saying, if you're meeting somebody for the first time and maybe let's say you're trying to network and you're talking with somebody, ask them a couple questions like, what do they do, right? And go beyond that. If they start to say something, be like, oh, that's really interesting. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because think about it. This person working in this field has probably done it for at least a few years, right? And they spend every single day about it. So what happens most of the time at these kind of networking events or when you're meeting other people, and just everybody doesn't care about what other people are talking about. They only care about themselves and they only care about their own story. And so they want to tell other people about their own story, but because nobody wants to listen, it's just a whole mess. But you can really differentiate yourself by just being willing to listen. And, you may be telling me, Ryan, this is just another self-help book. It's completely BS. But all I'm going to say is, I read it and I applied it in my own life. And I can definitely tell you it works for sure. This is real life advice, So again, I'm not forcing you to read any book. I'm just saying, you should probably get a summary of it. Just glance through it, because you can read all the books you want. But what do I talk about all the time? I say action over thought, right? If you have some thoughts in your head, I want you to act on them. So from this book's gonna give you some thoughts, right? It's gonna give you a different way of thinking about conversation, give you a different way of thinking about connecting with people, right? And it also gives you an understanding of why do people do certain things. A lot of times people will take certain actions and they'll be like completely irrational. Like it won't make any sense. Like for example, if let's say two people don't really like each other, and then there happens to be a situation where one person will offer, maybe because they're part of a job, there's a cool opportunity, so they offer it to the other person because they kind of have to for their job. The other person, because they don't like that other person, is gonna say no, even though on paper, that's an amazing opportunity, right? So that's one example of a more complicated situation that we see a lot in life, right? We see a lot of situations where it's like, this doesn't make sense. Why would this person act like this? But I think this book really does answer a lot of them, and it has some really, really good stories. That's why I would recommend, maybe reading if you can. If you can't, at least look at some of the stories, because the stories really are, I feel like they're just like pictures. People say pictures, one picture is like a 1,000 words or something like that, right? These stories really show you how it directly applies to real life situations. Somebody can give you the 5 principles of whatever, right? But if they don't show you how it actually applies to real world situations, it doesn't matter. So this book does a really good job of that. And that's why I think it's really important, because success is all about relationship building, to be honest. The more relationships you build and the harder you work, it's going to really set you up to, be in the right rooms, meet the right people, and learn the most that you can. Because nobody wants to listen to other people, you are limiting your ability to learn, because you're just simply not listening. You need to be a sponge and just absorb. And even if you're a sponge and you absorb too much and is maybe not like all the necessary stuff, you're also gonna absorb some really, really crucial, important information. So I think like really what you need to do is break down that resistance to like just all about you and just like thinking about yourself, and really think about, okay, what can I learn from other people? If I talk to other people, what can I gain from this conversation, right? Also, what do they have to teach me? Go into conversations thinking more about that. Of course, you can tell them about yourself. You can kind of share some of your own thoughts with them. But in this world today, there are too many people who just want to share their thoughts and nobody wants to listen. So I'm really telling you, this is one big way you can differentiate yourself, just by listening more. And by listening more, you'll be surprised by the opportunities that open up. Because again, like I said, I've seen it in my own life. And yeah, I hope you guys find this very helpful. So if you have any questions, put them down below. Make sure you guys follow and subscribe for more.